All righty. Another rough draft of Nate and Shelby Word of Mouth podcast. We were talking about the word validation, and it was kind of a spinoff of what we talked about with comparison. And off mic, it got intense for us, so we had to get back on the mic really quick just to talk about this, because I really believe that you as listeners should be able to understand from two different perspectives what we're speaking about and how we can relate to each other from a male and a female standpoint. So let's jump into this. We're talking about validation. Validation, I believe, for men, and I am a man.
Yes, you are.
Validations for men, we desire it. We desire it from women probably more than what we want to admit, due to the fact that it keeps us going. I was sharing with Shelby off mic that a secret from a man, here's a secret for you ladies. If you just tell a man how sexy he is when he washes dishes, or how amazing he is when he's cutting the lawn, or how beautiful he is when he mops the floor, like that stuff would literally get a lot of chores done in the household, because we thrive upon having that kind of validation from you women. So when it's not given, it causes a open door where if you're not going to give it, someone else may. You want to chime in?
Well, yes. Okay, it goes both ways, I will say, like we talked about. I think that, I completely appreciate the honesty, because I think it's much needed. And I am going to be completely honest too, because like we talked about earlier, validation goes both ways. I will speak personally and say that I am not a good attaboy woman. That's something I am not good at, and I'm trying to get better at. But I also know that with in my own life, seeking validation, like we talked, if I wasn't getting it from the source, if I wasn't getting it from home, instead of searching outwardly for male validation, I decided I'm going to do this, that, and the other. So I went into the classroom. I was classroom mom. I was the PTA mom. I was the soccer mom. I was everything mom, and poured myself out so that the community would think, oh, well, she's great. And, they would give me the validation. The teachers would be like, oh, you're such a good mom, blah, 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 blah. So I was getting my validation in that manner. But as that progressed, I was getting buried, because I kept signing up for more things, trying to find the validation. And once I got buried, I got bitter.
Ooh. Once I got buried, I got bitter.
Right. So I got bitter. The bitterness went home, right? If I'm completely honest, the bitterness went home. The bitterness was shown at home, wasn't shown out in the community that are seeing me doing all these wonderful things I'm doing that I'm getting validation for. So then the people at home had to deal with the bitter one. Wow. Now, if I had just, like we talked about, if I had just stopped and I had just gone to the person I was seeking the validation from the most, and maybe I did, but if I had just gone there, poured my heart out and said, this is what I need from you and I'm not getting it, then maybe all of the other would have been avoided. So you said the door can be opened, and definitely it can be opened, and a lot of people do go outside the relationship to find that validation. But for me personally, it wasn't going to a male figure to find that validation. It was just trying to find it in any way I could.
Fulfill the space.
Right. Yeah, fill that. But then, like I said to you earlier, once the bitterness starts, then even if the person I was really seeking the validation from was able to give it to me, which I'm not sure that that person was, but I couldn't be poured into at that point because I was so bitter, the walls were up, and if you poured into me, that water's just going to run off the sides. It's not even going to get poured in. So that's speaking from me as a woman's perspective. And I know, like I said, there's women that do go outside the marriage and try to find the male validation. That's not what I was searching for. I was just trying to get any validation. So I don't know for men if they do the same thing.
Well, I think men sometimes we want it so badly. The Bible says that God created us in his image and after his likeness. God requires for us to praise him.
Right.
So we want that kind of praise. We thrive for that kind of praise. And if it's not coming from one entity, we're going to get it from somewhere. And there's not a man on this earth that can say that he don't require some type of, whether it's an accolade, whether it's a praise, whether it's just to be validated for something that you do. And it can be very difficult when it's not coming from, if you're in a relationship, if it's not coming from home, it can be very difficult because the opposite sex makes us feel better.
Correct.
Another man can say, hey, you're doing a good job. But when a woman says it, she's seeing something that another man can't really see. Like we know each other as just men. If my best friend say, hey man, good job, blah, 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 thanks. I appreciate that, bro, because we men. But when a woman see it, that means you've took the time to study.
You preach.
You took the time to really pay attention to what I'm doing. And it means so much more coming from a person that you care about. So when it's not
Absolutely.
given at home, yeah, men will seek it elsewhere. I believe that men can seek it in other entities. Like if I was to be transparent, I sought it out in ministry. I sought it out in work. I sought it out in anything that I can do to fulfill the time of what I wasn't getting. But not everybody's like that. So I
Right.
think validation, we probably need to really break down how important it is to validate, the importance of validation. Sometimes we make the mistake and we don't fully address certain things in a validating way. We just kind of surface it. We put a blanket over it. Oh, well, you know, like I give an example. Women will say, oh, well, you know you're handsome. You ain't got to hear me say that all the time. No, it's okay if you tell me. I want to be told that I'm handsome, or I want, and we might not say it to you, but we do want to be told sometimes that we look good at least. But you can see, you know, Mr. Cruz on TV, or you know, Mr. So-and-so, and how good they, and you like, ooh, boy, if I was, but then you can't tell me that I look some kind of way.
But I think that's a societal norm because I think that, you know, women, so much is focused on our outward appearance. And so I think that it's more of the norm for women to get the compliments, right? But at the same time, it's more that women are judged on their appearance than men. So it's a double-edged sword.
Really?
And I don't know that women as a whole understand that men want that. I mean, I guess if they listen to this, they will. But
Absolutely. Hey, listen, I wanted to look up the definition of validation. It
thank
says
you. That's what I was
the action of checking or proving or accuracy of something. Wow. Another definition said the action of making or declaring something legal or official. And here's a great definition. It has one word: recognition. Oof.
That's what it is right there.
That's a drop the mic right
That's
there.
that's what it all boils down to.
Recognition.
Yeah. Just, do you see me? Like what we were talking about earlier. Do you see me? What's that? Isn't it Tyler Perry, that recording? Do you see me?
Do
I
you
see
see
you. Look like two Barneys.
Wow, that is so amazing. Recognition. All we desire is recognition. Can you recognize what I'm doing?
But not only that, can you recognize how I'm feeling? 'Cause-
Ladies, did you hear that? Okay.
Because it goes beyond the, hey, do you see me? No, do you really see me? Do you see me? Because if you see me, then you need to see me as deeply as how I'm feeling.
Wow. Listen, I wrote something down yesterday. I had to, of course, I'm older, so
Stop that, because you're younger than me. I'm going to get mad at you.
I had to write it down so I wouldn't forget it. And this was yesterday at like 10 o'clock. I said there's a huge difference between hearing and listening. And there's a huge difference between seeing and looking. So when you said, do you see me? I think sometimes we think that if I glance at you and then, I kind of keep going on, that's, for
Seeing.
men, that's seeing. You need to take a deeper look at it. Like she's thriving for your attention. And it costs to pay attention. Don't miss that. It costs to pay attention. And sometimes we miss it as men.
Some people don't want pay. Some people want things for free.
You better preach. Man, it's a cost. It's a cost.
Wow.
I think we just surface look and we just keep it moving, and women too. Women do the same thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, women do the same thing. I've wanted attention a lot. Now men don't talk about it, but we do want attention.
Well, I think that that's just the human condition. But, going back to what we were talking about earlier about the emotions, it comes from that place.
Yeah, it does. And that's what I guess brings out the word recognition. Do you think we need to begin to recognize each other more, even in society?
I think
Have we lacked?
absolutely if we could acknowledge each other.
Boy, these words are coming. Validation, recognition, acknowledge. Come on.
Seriously, though, because I think so many people just walk this planet and feel like nothing would change if they disappeared. And it goes back to our first discussion about if we knew that God created us specific, each one individually, for a purpose. Now, it doesn't mean that your purpose has to be grandiose. You might be there just to give a smile to someone who's about to end their life, and that changes everything that they were about to do. That might be your whole purpose. It's still a very vital purpose, especially for the person who's about to hurt themselves.
Right.
But we all have a purpose. We all have meaning. We all have importance. And so, yes, if we would acknowledge each other for just that reason alone.
I think society has gotten away from that unless you do something great.
Or unless you do something for me. Ooh, now I'm preaching right there.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I just said that out loud.
Out loud. She
Out loud.
did. Unless it's in a selfish manner, is the only way I will acknowledge it. That is so good. Shelby, that is good. Why is that? Why have we become
Because we're so
selfish?
focused on ourselves. And that's what society wants. I mean, that's what it strives for you to be, is focused on yourself. The whole self-care thing. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take care of yourself. But we're supposed to put others ahead of ourselves.
Absolutely. I agree.
And that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we get it mixed up.
I think we let the small things get to us more. Here's an example. From a biblical standpoint, the Bible says that the small foxes is what spoil the vine. Now listen to how that's structured. The small foxes. Jesus is what? The true vine. To allow that to be spoiled is when you let something so small enter in.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you know how animals are. You know where you live, so you know how animals are. If you look at a fox is so small and cute. It's a little cute thing, but they're connected to wolves.
Yes.
I'm preaching.
Ooh.
Their connection is to wolves. And they can spoil something. They're so small, but can make something so big. And we allow that small thing to enter in to cause us not to be able to validate, to cause us not to be able to recognize, to cause us not to be able to acknowledge. Something
Because
so
we get in
small.
our feelings.
So small.
Right.
There it is.
But we're going to go back to our discussion earlier about the vulnerability.
Whew.
There's another big word. So if the small things, basically the small things, if we don't address them, wind up adding up into big things, right?
Snowball effect.
Exactly. So if we were willing to be vulnerable enough at the small level and say, hey, I just got to throw this out there. When this happened, this is how I felt. Maybe that would help the whole situation. But because we're not willing to be vulnerable, we allow it to snowball. And then at that point, we're like, just wash my hands of that one. I'm not touching that anymore. When if we would have stopped at point A instead of waiting to point Z and said, can I just address something real quick with you? Regardless of what kind of a relationship it is, whether it's a marriage or a friendship or a business, whatever. Maybe if we'd have taken that time, if we'd have taken that vulnerable step, we wouldn't have gotten to Z where we're just like, yeah, whatever. I'm over you. But it, especially in marriages, especially in relationships, because like we were talking earlier, if we want the validation from the person who we've invested the most in, who means the most to us and has the most pull over us, but we're not willing to be vulnerable, then we're fulfilling the prophecy, right? Like we talked about. If we're not willing to take the step of going to that person and saying, hey, this is what's going on and I'm feeling like this and blah, blah, blah. Do you see me? Do you see me? But if we're not willing to do that because we know, well, somewhere in the back of our heads, our intrusive thoughts are saying, okay, well, what if you do say that? What if you do put your heart out there and that person rejects you? That person that you've invested the most in, that person that you have put everything on, then what?
Wow.
So we stop ourselves from doing the vulnerable thing, but then it's a possibility since we don't do the vulnerable thing, that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, if I could get it out. And it winds up that the relationship deteriorates in the end because we didn't take that step of vulnerability.
Off mic, Shelby and I was discussing vulnerability, and she mentioned a word that was so powerful. And for the male listeners, this word is very, very, very key that we don't talk about, and that's rejection. She spoke so vividly on it, man. Men are, and I agree with her. I'm a man. Men are more afraid of rejection than any other species known to man. I mean, just period. We're more afraid of it.
And what did we say? We said because of the emotion, right?
Yes.
Well, I'll speak for myself because I ain't going to speak for anybody else, but because women are such emotional creatures that we deal with rejection a little differently. Not that we want to ever deal with it, because we don't either. I mean, I think it's a fear across the board as a human.
Yes, I agree.
But because emotion tends to be so difficult for men, that for them to expend any of that emotional energy and then be rejected or have that possibility of rejection, it's amplified
Wow.
to the point that it crushes them. It can. I don't want to say it does, but I think it can.
Yeah. Potentially, yeah.
And that's what I think the fear is for men. Like, if this is such a foreign thing to me, these emotions are such a foreign thing, which really they shouldn't be, because God put them in you.
Yeah.
And you should be allowed to feel them, and you should be allowed to express them, and all that stuff. But I think we just, like we were talking about, like, it's so difficult in the first place to express those things, and then to be rejected on top of that is just crushing. And then we talked about, but there has to be a first time for everything.
Yes, it has to be. You're so right. How can you?
Because for you to fear that rejection means it already happened
Yes.
at some point, right? Because you know how bad it's going to feel, and that's what you're afraid of.
Yeah.
But where was the first time it happened?
Do you need to go back to that first moment, that first?
I think you do. I think you have to figure it out if you can, because it could, like we talked about, it could be a parental rejection when you were little. It could be classmate rejection when you didn't fit in with the group. It could be a lot of things. It could come from so many different sources. And so if you did go back and you were able to identify it, and then you could be rational about it and be like, did that really matter? Should I have really cared?
That's what
That little Johnny decided he didn't like me because I had a blue shirt on with a green collar, because when we're little, that's what, it's that finite. It's that stupid.
Right. Right. Wow.
I'll stop talking.
No, it's so amazing. Please don't. How powerful is that for us to just realize how small that was? Again, those small foxes that cause
Yes.
so much in our adult life, that we are so fearful of rejection, of just little Johnny.
Little Johnny, that small fox.
That small fox. He's spoiled all of this up into our adult years. And all I can say to little Johnny is, hey, I'm sorry you don't like my blue shirt.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. I'm going to wear it again.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Wow. How amazing that is. I think for us as, I can't even say believers, for us as men and women, I think we need to take a self-evaluation.
That's hard stuff.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that?
Oh, well, it's kind of the only way, in my Shelby voice, that's kind of the only way
Just do
we'll
it.
be able to
The Nike.
recognize. It's the only way we'll be able to recognize and be able to want to receive validation without the fear of rejection.
I think we have to understand the end goal. And that if the payoff is going to be what we want or not, you have to comprehend that. And what are you going to do if it's not? What are you going to do if you're rejected? What's the worst that could happen? Because you're still going to keep going, right?
All right? Life ain't going to stop.
No. And things heal. It ain't fun.
No, it's not fun.
But that's why you attack it when it's a small fox.
Yeah.
When it's a little Johnny. With the blue, or you got the blue shirt on.
The blue shirt. It was a Nike shirt, but it was a blue shirt.
Well, see, little Johnny was telling you just do it way back then.
All right, just do it. Wow. How amazing. It sounds elementary, but this thing has probably weighed over into most of our lives for years and years to come.
That's the thing, though. I'll say it again, us humans, we make things so dang difficult, I swear.
Yeah.
We put way too much effort, way too much thought, way too much consideration into things. We should just let it go. But how do I do that? Sometimes you just got to do it.
Just do it.
Are we going to get royalties? Are we going to get in trouble for that?
Man. But it's a true statement. Just do it. Just do it. You have no other choice.
And
really.
as a believer, you pray for transformation of your mind, renewing of your mind. You pray for that. So God's going to help. The Holy Spirit's going to help with all that.
I agree.
But if we would just relinquish, there's another big word, relinquish the control we think we have, because we don't got none.
God. She's starting another podcast, people. Relinquish control.
Yes. Put it down and don't pick it back up like I do all the time.
God. Relinquish. I would tell y'all that she told me this a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not going to tell you all that she told me this a couple of weeks ago. So, yes, just put it down. Let it go.
Let it go.
Just
let
do
it go.
Yes, she's singing, let it go. Let it go. Hey, we wanted to jump on here real quick and talk about how important it is to understand what validation is from a male and a female standpoint. I hope this has blessed all of you all.
Hey, can I just say something real quick?
Absolutely.
In this discussion, and probably every discussion we're going to have, it's just going to point out that we all need the same thing, whether we're male, female, black, white, purple, green,
Yes.
from another country. It don't matter. We're all searching for the same thing.
Yes.
That's part of getting past the comparison, because we're all searching. We're just. I wish you could see me right now, because I got my claws out.
Right. She's clawing over here, y'all. She's clawing.
We're all seeking the same thing. So if we could just grasp that and see each other as struggling with the same stuff. Might be different degrees of it, but we're all struggling with the same stuff, and every person is struggling with something,
Yeah.
if not more than something.
Yeah. We really are.
In our heads.
And
We are all up in our heads.
I think it goes back to the word that you just gave us, acknowledgement. Let's acknowledge that we are struggling with the same stuff,
Yeah.
the same thing. This is not separated based upon who or what or when or where. We're struggling.
Well, believer, non-believer, doesn't matter.
Same thing.
Yep.
And we need to address it in every capacity. So that's why we do what we do with Word of Mouth podcasts with Nate and Shelby. So she won't bring out her claws anymore because she's ready. And I see her mind going.
The wheels are turning.
The wheels are turning. So this has been the Word of Mouth podcast with Nate and Shelby. Tune in again, and we'll be here. All righty.
Love y'all.